My name is Chris Schrandt. I worked for Toyota for just over 9 years, from the years of 1988 to 1997. I worked at the Georgetown, Kentucky assembly plant. My position at the plant was I was originally hired in as a quality engineer, and then ended up being one of 4 quality engineering managers. My favorite lean tool, or TPS tool, that's probably, of all the questions, the most difficult because there's so many, right? I mean, again, the elimination of waste is what it's all about. So if you consider the tool of recognizing what are the wastes of a process, that's very powerful. But then using the value stream mapping tool to uncover those wastes. Once you uncover them, then the tools of built-in quality, of course, quality being my background is one of my favorites, but then also standardization. Extremely powerful in solving the problems that you uncover with the value stream mapping. And then, of course, without teamwork and 5S, none of that's possible. So that's a tough one. Favorite tool, all of them. The answer to this one, how does Toyota implement the idea of continuous improvement? And there's 3 other questions. How about 5S? And how about, at Toyota, I don't ever recall thinking about them as a tool. It's how we did the work. There was always that thinking of how will we do things better. I really even struggle, of course the word Kaizen was used quite a bit. But again, it was just the culture. It wasn't something that taught as a tool. It's how you did the business, same as 5S. It's how you did your work. I would say, the idea of respect for people, the concept of respect for people, is most evident in the fact that everyone is empowered. Everyone's opinion matters. Everyone is expected to participate in continuous improvement, in doing their own job. How can I do my job better? So, again, part of the culture. You were always treated well. Fujitsu Cho, who is now the current, or was the CEO of Global Toyota, was our first plant manager there. And he would hold the door open for an hourly worker the same as he would for anyone else. It was just tremendous amount of respect for each other. And then again, you were not only empowered but expected to participate in the process of continuous improvement. Yeah, before Toyota, I worked for a defense contractor, making parts to launch nuclear weapons. It wasn't very rewarding. But what was interesting is that I used to regulate, it was a union factory, okay? And it was my first job after college. And so I was always in trouble at that plant because I was doing things against their policies. Well, it turns out, I didn't realize it was completely in line with how Toyota works, of go and see, and involve people involved in the project. So that was very interesting to learn that the things that I was always in trouble for at a union facility was completely the right way to behave at Toyota. Well, there I had many senseis. we had a very interesting system there of, when I first joined, we were a fairly small organization, and every single person had what they called coordinator, was the name for the Japanese sensei. Then of course as we grew, we couldn't have someone there, as your sensei. But finally every manager level would always have a sensei. So again, I had many there. Unfortunately, it's a very tragic story of the gentleman who was my sensei the longest. He'd been my sensei for a period of 2 years, and then was gone for 2 years and came back. And then when he was at his second stint there, was killed in a plane crash in Detroit on his way to the Detroit Auto Show. So his name was Kita Takanami, and again, very strong personality. We fought all the time, and then it really wasn't until years later, trying to teach others what he taught me, that I understood the brilliance of what he was teaching me. I was always button heads with him, but again, it was like unbelievable what I learned from him. I mean, again, it was a lot about discipline. I learned everything about the A3 and problem solving from him. And tricks to do a good A3 that, he would, oh my gosh, one time, we worked on an A3 probably for a month nonstop till we got it just right. And again, things that I thought were just nitpicky had a very strong meaning behind them, of being concise and not using words. Use diagrams, use charts, use pictures, things like that. So it was, again, I just thought he didn't like English because he couldn't read English. It was because it made the presentation, the A3, much better for anyone to understand it without a lot of words. Just one small example, really. I would say this, technology is secondary at Toyota. And that recently I read or saw an article that'll express this much better than I do. But again, it's a tool, and they're not interested in what's the latest and greatest. Technology needs to support the people, and it needs to be proven before you implement it. An example is, in 5 years after we had opened up the first plant, phase 1, we built a second plant, doubled the capacity of the plant. And I was part of the team responsible for getting all of the test equipment, all the end-of-the-line complete vehicle testing equipment. I was part of the team to pick who provided it, what was provided, etc. Well, we were, we'd go to the local Detroit manufacturers who supplied Fords and GMs, and they'd have want to sell us on all the latest technology that everyone was using. And we were like, no, we don't want that. We want this old stuff, because it was proven, and we knew it was reliable, and we knew it would work. So it was very interesting. It was like, why aren't we using the latest and the best? No, that wasn't the case. And I think, again, there's some things that the technology made the parts of the tools of TPS work, like making single-minute exchange of dies, requires a great deal of technology to make that happen, But you don't need to automate everything. I mean, the assembly process was virtually unautomated. And then even since I've left, I know that they have gotten away from even putting too many robots in the body shop, because they have more flexibility with people. So again, a lot of words to say. It's secondary. It's not all about robotics. It's not all about the latest technology. Again, teamwork, 5S, continuous improvement. It's just the way you work. Teamwork is used sometimes as a positive as well as a pressure, right? It's peer pressure also. You have teams where, you have on the line groups where you have 5 or 6 team members and 1 team leader, and you don't have a replacement pool. So there is a team, and we all work as a team, but it's also, if someone's not there, right? Someone else in the team, like the team leader, has to fill in for them, and that puts a lot of pressure on the rest of the team. So it's kind of it's a combination of, okay, we're one group, we understand each other's work, we have good cross-training, but it's peer pressure also to come to work and be on time and do your job properly. The Toyota training process is, I witnessed many different evolutions of it and many examples of it. When I first joined Toyota as an engineer, salary employee, I was sent to Japan for 4 weeks and received extensive training there. And then again, when I came back to the U.S., I had my sensei, I had my coordinator with me for 6 months who was full-time, right? Well, that was just that first year when we got started. Later on, of course, we didn't have the resources to have that kind of training. But I heard stories about how when a salary employee in Japan was hired, the first thing they would do is go 6 months, they would go door to door and sell Toyotas, right? I mean, how incredibly powerful is that, to have to go and sell the vehicle, And then when they would come back from that, they would go and work on the shop floor for 6 months, right? The most we could ever do training like that was for a couple days to get an engineer out there. And in a union facility like General Motors, of course, we couldn't do that at all. But I tell you what, you gain respect for what the people are doing. Now, regards to how training evolved at Georgetown for the hourly workers, at first we would have 2 weeks of training and you were online. Well, what happened? We ended up with carpal tunnel, a lot of problems with that. It ended up, and now again, I left 12 years ago. How they do it now, I'm not sure, but it ended up being a 6-month program where you would have classroom training, what's Toyota production system, but it was also exercises and stretching and strength so that you could go to the line and be able to do the job. Again, mainly as a response to so many carpal tunnel issues. So it was a demonstration really of continuous improvement. They started out, they hired a lot of young kids from high school and everything was fine, but 5 years into it, wow, everybody's got carpal tunnel, and so what do we do? And they learned and expanded the training program. What is Toyota's greatest strength? To be honest, it just comes back to discipline and hard work. They took great ideas, some of them they developed their own. Of course, some they took from Deming, some they took from Ford Motor Company. But they had the discipline to say, okay, we are embracing these ideas and we're really going to do it. And it's not just today and it's just not tomorrow. It's continuously having the discipline to follow those rules, those tools, that culture, okay? And it's hard work. I mean, it is a lot of work. The work ethic. I teach people that the Toyota production system you can use in any culture. There's no reason in one culture is more able to implement it than another. However, the work ethic in Japan was much different. So it was, there, someone to work 12 hours a day as a salary employee was the norm and expected, okay? So the second part of it, discipline, was the hard work. I mean, it really was hard work. There was no magic. There was no just these are great ideas, or we just easily design great vehicles and they go together easily. It was a lot of hard work. So really, discipline, hard work that they apply to all of the good thinking methods that they have.